Hello, Global Village. Okay, today I want to first of all just promote a YouTube channel called Improbable Matter, and I also want to segue into why I think we are, in some respects, already living in a dystopia of sorts. So, first of all, several years ago now, I guess probably about 5 or so years ago, um, there was an experiment done in relationship to fusion that made quite a lot of noise. And this is because they had produced a positive result whereby the amount of power expended to cause the reaction was less than the amount of power produced. So they had more power produced than put in, meaning that we had a sort of what appeared to be a kind of like a viable fusion reaction. Um, and it was immediately pointed out that this report of success was highly misleading. And it was highly misleading because they were reporting a thing called Q plasma rather than Q total. And the difference being that Q plasma only takes into account the energy input of the actual reaction itself rather than the energy input required to power the whole apparatus that produced the fusion. So in reality, Q plasma is not useful from a commercial point of view. What you want is to produce a positive net gain of Q total. And we are still many, many orders of magnitude away from being able to do something like that. And what it kind of demonstrated was that back then, before the AI thing was kicking off, we saw a clear example of how certain startups were being kind of dishonest in the way they were trying to attract venture capital by creating noise and almost creating a sort of a misleading impression of a level of advancement in that field that was far less than they wanted to make it sound. And I found, in result of that, because I wanted to do my own sort of research into it, I discovered a YouTube channel called Improbable Matter, and I never really forgot about that channel because it was just so fucking good. Now, this creator has probably only published something around 20 videos, so he's not exactly a prolific content creator, and in fact, his channel has been kind of dead for quite some time. However, I think if you are actually just interested in learning a little bit more about the details of fusion, and I think it's something worth learning a little bit about, you simply cannot do better than listening to a number of videos this gentleman made about fusion. Highly educational. And if nothing else, it will certainly give you a far more realistic expectation of the prospects that we will be creating a viable fusion reactor that can power humanity in any viable or reasonable way. The reality is it's almost certainly not happening in our lifetimes, and who knows when and if it's ever going to happen. So that was one thing, but I now want to segue into what happens if you go to Google and you ask the question like, what is the difference between Q plasma and Q total, which I've, of course, have just gone ahead and done. And what we get, of course, is an AI overview at the very top of the screen, which I would suggest the vast majority of people including myself, would probably just settle for because of the pure convenience of it. Now, what did the AI overview have to say on the matter? Well, I'll quickly use a text reader to read it out. And I just want to quickly point out that I am visually impaired, as I've mentioned in other videos that I've made, which is why I use a text-to-speech tool. And recently, they have started embedding graphic images to represent certain key text, which defeats the text-to-speech reader, which, from my point of view, is really annoying because it just makes it that much harder for me to actually, convert the text-to-speech so I know what it actually says. This is just one of the many ways that technology continues to get worse, or at the very least completely fails to consider how their tools interact with each other and how that might negatively impact someone who has accessibility needs, such as myself, for example. So when I play this out, it is not going to read the word here, tech Q plasma, and it's not going to read the word here, Q total. So just keep that in mind.
In nuclear fusion, Q is the energy gain factor, the ratio of fusion power generated to power input. Measures only the heating and output inside the superhot fuel. Measures the entire power plant's electrical system, accounting for the energy needed to run auxiliary equipment, like magnets and lasers, and heat to electricity conversion losses.
Right, so pretty much exactly what I said. So what we can conclude from this is that the AI overview seems perfectly reasonable. It's given me what I would regard to be an answer completely consistent with my understanding of what these values mean. So what's the problem, you may ask? Well, the first problem is that I didn't ask for an AI overview, and in fact, several years ago, were I to input this question, I would have not received an AI overview. I would have received a link to various websites that I would have then been able to click on to learn more about the question. And I would have, of course, then had better context in relationship to the answer. Indeed, I would have had some context at all, which you don't actually get here in any shape or form, in terms of exactly where did it source this answer. We have no idea where it acquired this information. We're just using good faith to believe that it's actually telling me something that is factual. Again, for most of us, and just for reasons of pure inertia, we're going to accept this and move on with our lives. Now, the fact that, I don't know, let's say 99% of the time it is correct, well, that's actually a problem. And it's a problem because you will be trained into just trusting that this is always going to give you the correct answer and not questioning it. So that 1% of the time, when it's actually given you, say, for example, a catastrophically wrong answer, let's say you're researching some issue related to your health, and you decide everything's okay based on the response when it turns out everything is not okay. Well, that is an example of how we've been misled by AI, and we're none the wiser about it because we stopped really challenging the source. We stopped challenging, where did it get this information, and how reliable is that information? We've just become slaves to the AI tools, basically. So what it actually does is it gives us this AI overview. Then if you scroll down, what do we get here? We get a link to Reddit. Now, I find this very suspicious. Why would the second piece of information returned be Reddit? I would suggest that what's happening here is that there is some sort of unholy alliance between Google search and Reddit, which means that they get privileged priority in terms of any searches that are done on Google. Because I don't think clicking on a Reddit thread is really the best next choice when you're asking a question like that. What we get after that is then people also ask. So now it's still, rather than actually giving me other external sources, it's now branching out to other related possible questions I might have, which I can then click on and get answers to, again, not necessarily knowing where they came from. So, not impressed. Finally, we now get actually Wikipedia, which, say what you like about Wikipedia, and I will say that Wikipedia is actually going down the shitter at the moment because it is getting swarmed with advertising. But nonetheless, Wikipedia provides full references to its sources. So if it concerns you enough, you can find out how it came about providing you the answers it's providing you with. So you can just fact check, verify, and be confident in the sources. Again, that is completely gone when it comes to what we are living with now. And I believe this is very much a definition of dystopia. There are other repercussions we need to consider in relationship to what's happening here. Because let's imagine I typed into here, how do you make a sock puppet? And of course, AI is going to tell me how to make a sock puppet. And in the past, there would have been links to websites, probably some quite obscure special interest websites about how to construct a sock puppet, including perhaps someone who had made their own little cottage business out of creating sock puppets. And when you clicked on their website, you discovered that they had made all these incredible, I don't know, maybe Sesame Street sock puppets or something. And you think, fuck, that's really cool. I want to buy some of these. So they managed to build a viable little business out of their esoteric hobby of creating sock puppets. And now that is all gone, because now instead AI has simply gone to these websites, stolen the information from them in what is ostensibly the world's biggest plagiarism project ever to happen in human history, and then just fed it back to us without crediting where it got that information from, and destroying that small business, their viability in the process. So the internet as we knew it, as a place where people could, find a way to potentially create any number of strange and wonderful, weird businesses, has been eviscerated by this new technology, because people just don't find websites the way they once did. We just get the information fed back to us because Gemini, companies like Google, are stealing that information, because that is what they're doing. They are stealing it. Anyway, I just wanted to have a bit of a rant about that. I did want to promote that YouTube channel because it is really good and educational, and I love science. Bendy out.